Hi everyone, it's Mr. Barden here. This video is going to be going over what we should be talking about on the second week of class. I think this will be a little bit shorter video because I don't have all of the intro stuff from the last time, but then the next video is going to cover some slightly more advanced stuff compared to what we've done so far, so that one will probably be a little bit longer. So of these intro videos, this will probably be the shortest. So I'm going to mostly stay in the textbook for at least a good portion of this, and then we'll hop over into the code as needed, and then I will end the video talking about the assignment for this class. Okay, so the canvas in P5 is where everything happens visually. If I was to rerun this sketch from the last video I made, you'll see that this box appears. This box is the canvas. So whenever we display our sketch, everything that is on the canvas is what the user will see. So if it is not on the canvas here, the user has no way to see it or interact with it in any way. Right now, that's kind of fine because we aren't doing a whole lot, but as we do more and more advanced stuff, that's going to become rather important because we're going to make buttons that do things when you click on them, and if they aren't in a place where the user can see them and be able to click on them, none of them will work. Okay, so you'll notice in the default sketch, it'll say create canvas, and the arguments here are 400, 400. What these do, this is the, you can experiment on this and find it out on your own, but I'll just tell you right now, is that this is the width and height of the canvas to be made. So by default, it is 400 pixels by 400 pixels. We could make it wider if we wanted. We could make it taller if we wanted. It kind of depends on what you need for yours. What you want. So again, you can tweak it to be whatever you need it to be, but just know that this is the number of pixels that we have here on, horizontally and then vertically. That's kind of the standard. Pretty much it's always the horizontal aspect first and then the vertical one whenever you have to mention the two. So again, it's the X and Y, width and height. That's what we've got going on here. Again, by default, it's 400 by 400, but you can make it whatever you want. In the background function, there's a number there. You can use that to set the color of the canvas. I mentioned it a bit here, but for now, I'm going to kind of skip over that. In terms of numbering all of this, because we're specifying exactly, to the number, how many pixels are making up this area of the screen that we can interact with and do things with. So every single pixel has a coordinate value, which is very handy. I do want to point out, though, that if you've taken a geometry class, if you remember the coordinate planes and working with that, this canvas that we're working with is just like quadrant 4 of that coordinate plane. And the reason for that is because the computers are going to start at the top left corner and they're going to build that, every frame, they're going to build that canvas kind of horizontally, pixel by pixel, as we go. So this top left corner up here where my mouse is, this is pixel coordinate 0, 0. And as we increase this horizontally, whatever pixel you're looking at will move over here to the left, or to the right, I'm sorry. And as you increase that value vertically, it will move down. Okay, that may take a little bit of work to get used to, but that's kind of the whole point of this upcoming assignment as we go through it all here. We might be able to see this a little bit more clearly if I did this. I can't spell. All right, so what this is going to do is going to draw a red circle that's 25 pixels in diameter wherever my mouse X and Y is. We could also say console.log, and we can display mouse X, comma, mouse Y. And if we hit run, we'll see that by default it's at 0, 0. And as I move this around, you can see I'm increasing it horizontally by moving it to the right, and I'm increasing it vertically by moving it down. So you can find the exact pixel you need to work with right there. So that's that. And I kind of mentioned all of that as well. By the time you've done this a lot, it'll be relatively easy to get things where you want them on the canvas. I can kind of ballpark it and then tweak it, or we can do some stuff with fractions after what we're going to talk about next week. But to kind of help you get used to that, I have some codes here for you to interact with. The first one here is just a grid on the canvas. And does it say? It does say. Okay, so at the bottom, it displays the number, the pixel. Oh, you can't see that because I'm in the way. I'm going to hide my face. There we are. At the very bottom of this, it displays the number location that your mouse is at for that frame. So again, you can use that to find it out. And I've also got, just a grid of values placed here to help with, eyeballing that. The second one is very similar, but has an added feature. And you can, again, explore the code if you want to. But whenever it does the same thing, but whenever I click the mouse, it makes this little bullseye target right here, and it displays that number. So here we are at 101, 43. And so on. I mean, it does get a little problematic when we start getting into big values. But again, you can see it's displaying. So when I click the mouse, it should say 161, 515. Boom, right there. And that's the location of the center of the circles where I clicked my mouse. So that's what's going on there. So what I want you to do is look at this code and experiment, until you have an idea of what you think those locations would be. That should be hopefully a helpful tool for you. The second thing I want to talk about today is drawing stuff, because the idea is we draw things and put them on the canvas in a specific location. And this is actually part of the assignment that we will be doing today. Or this week, I should say. Normally I do one of these for each day of the week. But there's 4 shape functions that I want you to focus on for right now. And if you went into here and reference, you can find all of these here under shape for 2D primitives. So we'll be using the ellipse, the line, the rect, and the triangle. Well, you're not going to use square or circle at all. Well, point, I mean, it's kind of pointless, but what it's there. And then towards the end of this unit, we'll come back and we'll look at arcs and the vertex stuff. But we can do a lot of stuff, but we're going to start with some of those basic shapes first. So I've got a new sketch here. Basic shapes. 22/23. There we go. Okay, so let's start by making a shape. You go into your draw function, and this is important. Whatever you type the inside of these braces, the computer is going to run them in order. You may have noticed earlier I started typing a thing here and then moved it beneath the background. That's because first the computer makes the background and then it'll do the next thing. So if I said, this, we're not seeing a rectangle because it's there, but we are drawing over it with the background, so we can't actually see it. So within the functions, order matters. So I'm going to put this back at the top, and now we can see this rectangle. And this actually is the first one I wanted to talk about, the rectangle function. So this draws a rectangle at any position of any width and height. And these arguments here are for the width, I'm sorry, the x, comma, y, comma, width, comma, height. XY is the top left corner. So because of the I'll just say the physics, the math involved, all that stuff for drawing these shapes, they behave in various different ways. A rectangle, because of how it works, basically the computer starts at a pixel and then draws lines, of a certain length so many times until it has a rectangle. So here we've got this point right here is 100, 100 on the canvas. All right, that is the XY location of the top left corner of your square. Or this one's a square, it's a rectangle. These other two are the width and height in pixels of the shape. So maybe I wanted to make it wider than I wanted to make it tall. Well, boom, now it's 150 by 50. Or maybe instead I wanted to make it 150 by 100. So again, that's the width and height. This is the X and the Y. So again, it behaves just like this everything else, but that's what we have going on there. The ellipse has the same X, Y, width, height. X, Y is the... But because of, again, the math and the physics, if a circle is different from a square. If you didn't know that, I'm telling you now, a circle is different from a square. The math is different. So this XY point is the center of the square, not the top left corner, because a circle has no corners. So if I did 200, 200, and then I did the same 150, 100, you can see we've got this shape. It's the same, width, height. If I wanted to make a perfect circle, just make these last two the same, and it makes that. If I wanted to, if I put these at the same points there, you'll see that center of the circle is the same as the top left corner of the rectangle. So that is that. We just say where we want it, how big we want it, and there you go. I'm gonna move this over just so they aren't overlapping anymore. Lines are really simple. They also have 4 arguments, but it is the point. There we go. The points, to the pixel coordinate for each end of the line. And I realize I've been talking and making hand gestures, but my face has still disappeared. There we go. The line we're saying, okay, this point here, that point there, and the computer is drawing a line in between them. So to do that, we just have to tell it where to put the stuff. So let's say it was, 300, 200 for the first point, and it's very hard to see, but technically there is a single point somewhere around here on the screen, a single pixel. And I'll just make this, I'll make it a vertical line. Why not? So the horizontal would be the same, and the vertical would change. And boom, there is that line. And we could tweak it. Maybe I want it to move horizontally as well. And it just does it. And maybe I don't want it to go all the way to the edge of the screen. Maybe I want it to go almost to the edge of the screen. There's the shape. Okay? So it's just whatever that pixel coordinate for each end of the line is. The last one is a little bit more problematic. It behaves just like the line, but there's now a third point, and this makes a triangle. So I'll just say x1, y1, comma, x2, comma, y2, comma, x. Just like so. Um, so you may have already noticed, but this does bring up a bit of an, not an issue, but just a difference between the first two shapes I have listed here and the second two. That being that with these two, the shape is the entity in and of itself. I can just take this rectangle and I can move it, say change this to 50, and the whole thing moves. This is different with the lines and the triangles because the ends, the end point of the lines or the three corners of the triangle all behave independently. That means you can get extremely precise and specific measurements, but whenever you have to translate or move things around, it can become a bit of a pain in the butt. Sorry. That's just the way it be. So I'm going to make my line a little shorter, actually. Um, Wrong way, actually. That should have been 300. Okay, just so I have some room to draw a triangle. So again, we have x1, y1 there. So I'm going to go vaguely over here. So really high on the x, not that high on the y. So let's say 350 and, I don't know, 75. So there it is. Okay, so it's with the triangle one. You should see that whenever you do that, it's going to build the shape bit by bit. So here is the first point it has made, right where my mouse is. You may be able to see that. You may not. The next one, I want to move it down and to the left. So we're going to decrease the x and increase the y. Boom. And maybe that's a bit too much, so maybe we'll go 250. And maybe that wasn't enough, so 225. Yeah, sure, that'll work. And then for the third one, we can just go in and I just want to move it horizontally. So we'll say 375 and we'll keep the vertical aspect the same. And boom, there you go. We've got a triangle. And that's basically the process. And these are the four main shapes, and it's basically pixel location of the various elements, and if there's a size to it, we give that the size bits as well. So we have all of these right here. You'll notice that I put comments explaining what each of these arguments were. That's a very helpful thing to do. It's also beneficial if you would go in and whenever I do a triangle, I add additional comments. Top. And it basically looks something like this. And this basically is just indicating the ordering, I should say, of the pairs of values here. Because I like to think of each of these 6 numbers as, rather than 6 individual numbers, it's 3 pairs of values, 1 for each corner. And so I just toss myself a little helpful comment here that says what this order is. So I can say, oh, okay, this is the top and to the left. I mean, I could figure, the top one is first, then the left one here, and then the right one, generally so I can figure that out. I mean, I have enough experience. I can math out exactly what to change to move it all around. That's not an issue, but this will help save you some headaches if you just include this little comment line whenever you do a triangle. It's very, very handy. Okay, so I'm going to actually be starting to wrap out this video. That's pretty much the canvas in a nutshell. It's just a 2D plane there. But the assignment is you've got this image, and this is all in the Google Classroom. It's right, if I go right here, so week 2, we have bell ringer. If anything pops up again for week 2, I'll stick it here. But the main thing is to finish the bell ringers and the assignment by the due dates. But if you click on the link here, it'll take you right to this section, this Let's Practice. That's the link I used. So it tells you all about the shapes again if you need a refresher. And then it gives you an image. And on this is drawn an ellipse, a rectangle, and I want to point this out before I move on. A circle is an ellipse, and a rectangle is a square is a rectangle, but the opposite is not true. So That's why there are separate functions for circle and squares, but you can just use the ellipse, and it's this is a much more flexible function. So just like all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. That kind of thing is, you may have noticed that earlier, and it may have bugged you. I went off on a sidetrack there. But there's an ellipse, a rectangle, a line, and a triangle on the canvas, and you can see my mouse was located, right down here when I took this screenshot. So your goal is to recreate this as accurately as possible. There's all the tools you need are already here, particularly in this bit of code, this page, and this video that you are watching right now. I've given you some code right here that'll put the grid on your canvas. So if you wanted to copy this and just replace the default code, you could do that. But again, you're going to want to recreate all of this. I have also given you the lines needed to make the shapes be the same black color here if you want. I personally do not care what color all of these things are. I'm grading it on the positions instead. So if you get this done and want to experiment with the colors, fill adjusts the what's being filled inside of the shape, and stroke is the outline. By changing these values, you can change the color. By having 3 numbers in a row, you can change it to be like actual colors. So if I wanted to make this this blue, I could say fill, or actually, instead of working with numbers, just as a string, type out the name of the color you want. That I'll leave with that. So fill. Maybe I want to make this one orange. And maybe we'll make the triangle pink. And for lines are different because they're only 1 pixel wide. So we have to work with the stroke and make this, I don't know, whatever, green. But just know that you may have noticed this already. But I mentioned this before, that the computer is going to repeat this code over and over again 60 times a second. There you go. But it's going to loop it all over. And fill, it's a single value. We're just setting whatever the fill is and drawing the shape. So everything after that in the function gets drawn that color. So if you want to make all of your shapes different colors, which if you do that, maybe I'll give you some bonus points. You have to set it right before the thing you want it to apply to. And you'll also notice that the stroke changed this line, but it changed all of the other ones. So maybe, put that back. So just this one is, so just that line is green, and these all have that same blue or black border. Again, it may take a little bit of finagling and just getting some practice. I want you to explore just a little bit. Put some shapes on the screen, move them around, adjust their size and position, and if you want to play with the colors, you can. For the most part, if you just say fill or stroke, and then the name of the color in parentheses, or in quotation marks, it'll pop up. There's this little bar here that it'll also open up a color picker, and you can pick other colors, but I'm not gonna fine tune all of the bits and go through it all right now. But there's a lot of colors you can work with to get some cool shades. So again, you play around with that, but the main thing I'm looking for is you making a code that can create this. Once you are done, turn it into this assignment, or I should say, turn it in, mark it as turned in, you're good to go. If you want to look at some of the stuff that's ahead in the Google Classroom, basically, as long as it's in the Google Classroom, it is open game. So see what it is, check it out. If you want to do something early, that's fine. Go for it. That's all good. What I care, as long as it's not late. Okay, there's all of these assignments have a due date on the back, and the back end, and generally speaking, it's like that Sunday at the end of the weekend. There'll be a more concrete deadline once I am there physically in the classroom all the time. But I, again, can't stress enough, turn all of this in by the due date. I'll be doing some grading and stuff as we go along while I'm gone. And if it's not in, it'll be at 0 until it's in. So get the stuff done. That's going to be it for this video. I'm going to do another one where we're going to start moving into variables, but we're going to kind of break that up into a few days. But I've got, here's some questions and the basic assignment already up there in the Google Classroom, so you can check it out. I'm going to be ending it for now, and I will see you all the next time I see you. Bye.